We live in a world where the innocence of childhood is being lost at an alarming rate. The digital age, while offering incredible access to information, has also introduced unprecedented dangers that children were never meant to face at such a young age. Today, children are bombarded with explicit content, from graphic images to harmful ideologies, all accessible at the touch of a button. Parents used to be able to rely on certain boundaries, school, the neighborhood, even the playground, as safe spaces for their children. But today, those boundaries are disappearing. The exposure to the adult world happens so early that it's no longer a matter of whether they'll be affected, but how deeply they will be impacted. You can see the consequences in the eyes of so many young people today. The pressures they feel to conform, to present a perfect image on social media, to seek validation through likes and followers. This is not the childhood we once knew. Children are not only losing their innocence, they're also losing their sense of self. They're growing up in an environment that tells them they are constantly falling short. They're being conditioned to believe that their worth is determined by external factors, how many friends they have, how many followers they can accumulate, or how well they can match the images they see on their screens. It's a dangerous game, one that chips away at their mental health and well-being. Anxiety, depression, and even suicidal thoughts are becoming all too common among children who should be living carefree, exploring the world and learning who they are. Instead, they are exposed to a constant stream of pressures and comparisons that erode their sense of self-worth. This isn't just about the occasional misstep or a bad day, it's about a culture that systematically undermines childhood. Children today face an overwhelming number of distractions, most of which involve things they aren't equipped to process. Social media platforms allow them to see a distorted version of the world, one that seems perfect but is often completely fake. They watch influencers live lives that appear flawless, but beneath the surface, these images are built on filters, Photoshop, and the pursuit of validation that has nothing to do with real happiness or fulfillment. More than ever, we need to be vigilant about what children are being exposed to. They don't always have the capacity to filter out harmful messages, and too often the systems that are supposed to protect them fail to do so. Schools, social media companies, and even entertainment platforms have yet to take full responsibility for their role in shaping children's lives. The reality is that children are growing up too fast. The world they are entering is a complex, confusing place, and they aren't given the tools to navigate it. They are expected to process information meant for adults, everything from violent news reports to inappropriate advertisements, and still be expected to develop into healthy, well-adjusted individuals. But it's nearly impossible when they're faced with so many pressures, so much confusion, and so little real guidance. What is most troubling is that many of us turn a blind eye to this. It's as if we've accepted that this is simply the way things are. We scroll past headlines about child suicides and anxiety disorders like they are just another part of the news cycle. We hear about the challenges facing today's youth, but we don't always act. We make excuses, saying it's just the times we live in, or that things will get better. But if we are being honest with ourselves, we know deep down that the impact of these pressures is far-reaching, and it's only getting worse. This erosion of innocence is not just a tragedy for today's children, it's a tragedy for our future. How can we expect to raise a generation capable of facing the challenges of tomorrow when we aren't even providing them with the tools to face today? We are creating a generation that is unprepared to navigate the complexities of the world. They are being taught to measure their success by superficial metrics, likes, follows, material wealth, when true fulfillment and happiness come from understanding their values, finding purpose, and connecting with others in meaningful ways. The question we must ask ourselves is, when did we stop protecting our children's minds? When did it become acceptable to expose them to so much harm without so much as a second thought? We have allowed society to push boundaries that were once sacred. Our children are subjected to a constant barrage of unhealthy influences, and yet we sit idly by, watching it unfold. It's time for us to take a stand. We cannot let this continue. The cost of allowing this to go unchecked is too great. Our children deserve more than what they are being given. They deserve to grow up in a world where their innocence is preserved, where they have the freedom to explore their creativity, to fail and learn from those failures, and to develop into healthy, well-rounded individuals without the weight of the world on their shoulders. We cannot continue to allow the world to steal their childhood from them. The task ahead is not easy, but it is one we must take on. It begins by recognizing the reality of the situation and refusing to accept it as the norm. We must do everything in our power to protect our children, to ensure they have a safe space to grow and develop without the overwhelming pressures of the adult world encroaching upon them. The battle for their innocence is a battle we cannot afford to lose. The reality is that while the physical safety of children is often discussed and addressed, the psychological and emotional threats they face are frequently overlooked. The danger that lurks in the modern world is not just the risk of physical harm, but the constant psychological warfare that targets the very core of their identities. With the explosion of technology, social media, and digital connectivity, children are facing new challenges that most of us, as adults, didn't have to contend with at their age. Consider the constant pressure to measure up to an idealized version of life, a version that is often distorted, edited, and artificial. Social media platforms, where children spend a significant portion of their time, create an environment where comparison is not only inevitable, but also celebrated. They are taught to chase validation through likes, followers, and comments, which only feed into the notion that their worth is determined by others' opinions. What happens when that validation isn't enough? What happens when they don't receive the attention they crave or the praise they feel they deserve? This cycle of dependency on external approval leads to emotional exhaustion. It nurtures a generation of young people who are uncertain of who they are, what they stand for, and what they truly want from life. They live in a world where their self-worth is determined not by their actions, their intellect, or their compassion, but by the approval of strangers on the internet. This emotional battleground where insecurity and self-doubt thrive is one of the most dangerous aspects of modern childhood. It erodes self-esteem, distorts the self-image, and leads to deep feelings of loneliness and inadequacy. The consequences are profound. As children increasingly base their identity on the opinions of others, they risk losing the sense of self that is critical for navigating the world as a confident and self-assured adult. Without a solid foundation, they are more likely to fall victim to peer pressure, engage in risky behaviors, and struggle with anxiety and depression. This emotional toll is often invisible to the outside world, but it's felt deeply within the child's mind and spirit. It's crucial that we begin to recognize this psychological battle as one that must be fought, as it is one of the greatest threats to the mental well-being of today's youth. As we move into the digital age, the mental and emotional landscapes children must navigate have changed drastically. What used to be a matter of finding one's identity in a community, school, or social setting has evolved into a matter of performing for an invisible audience, one that exists online and can reach across the globe. The consequences of this shift are not simply about losing childhood innocence, they are about the erosion of a child's ability to process and understand who they are in a world where everyone is presenting their best version of themselves. Children no longer have the luxury of going through life stages without being subjected to public scrutiny. Every thought, every image, and every moment of their lives is under the lens of social media. It's as if they are living in a pressure cooker where they must constantly perform, compete, and measure up to a standard that may not even be real. And this pressure isn't just about fitting in, it's about surviving. In a world where the lines between reality and performance are so blurred that they can't tell where one ends and the other begins. This shift in the way children interact with the world has not only made them more vulnerable to external pressures, but has also affected their internal world. The lines between reality and illusion are now so thin that it becomes increasingly difficult for them to know what's real about themselves and what's been shaped by the world around them. Every time they post a picture, every time they check their phone for notifications, they are engaging in a performance that requires them to alter themselves to fit an ideal, even if that ideal is unattainable and deeply flawed. These constant shifts in identity take a toll. Children grow up unsure of who they really are, what they really feel, or what they want to achieve. Instead of cultivating their inner world, their self-worth becomes dependent on others' feedback. And when that feedback doesn't come, they feel like failures. This in turn breeds discontentment and a sense of emptiness that no amount of likes, comments, or followers can fill. These children grow up lost with no true understanding of themselves. They've been conditioned to think they must conform, to think they must be something they're not, to fit into a world that doesn't have their best interests at heart. But it's not just the children who are affected by this. As a society, we have collectively allowed this new form of digital exposure to take root in the lives of our youngest members. The impact has reached beyond the individual child and has permeated our culture at large. The reality is that this environment we've allowed to flourish has created a generation of children who are less resilient, less prepared for life's challenges, and less equipped to deal with adversity. We've watched as our children's emotional and psychological landscapes have been commodified and manipulated instead of being given the tools to build their inner strength, their emotional resilience, and their ability to cope with the challenges life throws their way. They are given tools to measure themselves against an unattainable standard. This isn't about being a good person or developing character. It's about fitting in, being popular, and attaining external validation. In essence, we've traded a healthy sense of self for an unhealthy need to be seen. The greatest cost of all is the way this culture of comparison stunts growth. Children are not learning to cope with failure, disappointment, or rejection because they're constantly told they must avoid these feelings at all costs. They are taught that feeling inadequate is a tragedy, that they must avoid pain and discomfort at all costs. What we've failed to recognize is that it's through struggle, through disappointment, through pain that we grow the most. But these lessons, which are essential to mental fortitude and growth, are being withheld from our children. We're raising a generation of young people who are unable to deal with the realities of life. As a society, we need to do better. It's time we put more value on teaching children the importance of resilience, self-reliance, and inner peace. It's time to stop celebrating the external and start nurturing the internal. The constant bombardment of digital noise has to be turned down, and we need to go back to building environments where children can safely grow, learn, and develop at their own pace. It's time to protect them, not just from the dangers of the physical world, but from the digital chaos that is warping their sense of reality. If we don't act now, the consequences will echo through future generations, and the price of ignoring these threats will be one that no society can afford to pay. The question is, how long are we going to wait before we start protecting our children from the world that is slowly consuming them?